Okay, official beginning here. 25 Shvat, Hayom Yom. We missed the Yom Yom yesterday. Nobody called me on it. All right, studying a parsha of Chumash with Rashi every day. He says in parentheses, Sunday until Sheni, Monday till Shlishi, etc. Saying Tillim every day and the entire Tillim on Shabbos Mevorchim. So one needs to be scrupulous about all these because it is crucial for you, for your children, and your children's children. Critical, crucial. What to say in Yiddish is nagea, it touches you. It's important. These three things. Okay, so let's move on to the Tanya. Lessons in Tanya, bottom of page 361, right at the bottom. And this version of Tanya, the classical version. Page 68. Page 68.
Did you do Hayom Yom already?
Yeah, just did it.
1 minute? Okay.
We just did it. Yeah, we did it.
Okay.
Yeah. You got to be there.
Yeah, well, yesterday, I guess we missed it too. Okay.
Well, yesterday I didn't do it. Today you just missed
That's
it.
why I asked. That's all I asked. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we've been discussing, and particularly in the last part of yesterday, the avoida of iskafia. And we quoted a Zohar, which I'll quote again. Kad iskafia sitra achra, when a person subjugates the sitra achra, v'istalik yikora l'kutsha bricha le'elam. That causes a great effusion of godliness up above. And this has been in the context primarily of various things which are in the context of things which have been forbidden al pi Torah. In other words, if you're worried about the sins that you have done, or if you're worried about the sins that you are attracted to and you haven't done, and all different kinds of worry. We mentioned yesterday 3 different categories of worry. I won't review the 3 of them, and the answer for all of them is to not let worry grab you, but you grab it, so to speak. Meaning take charge of it and realize that, yeah, it's something you have to deal with, but deal with them in fixed times. The Torah prescribes fixed times for that, which is Tikkun Chatzos and Krishma Lamita. And we spoke about perhaps utilizing that notion of fixed times as making fixed times for yourself to think about that, so that you're not going around beating yourself up all day for the things that you should be beating yourself up for, right? In other words, there are things that need to be remedied, but if I go around beating myself up all day, that's going to just lead to atzvus, which is the worst thing that the Tanya warns us against. Atzvus, depression, worry. These are the things that starts the slippery slope into falling away. It's equated with the element of earth, which is on the Sitra Arka side, which is the element of downness and coldness. And kalkite is the beginning. So we've had a whole discussion here about creating proper times for that, and being careful that not letting yourself slip into those things. And it was all in the context of averos, Yehuri averos, thinking about averos, or doing averos, or being drawn into doing certain averos. Today we're going to talk about it, the same idea, iskafia sitra achra, but we're going to talk about it not in terms of sinning or being attracted to sinning, but developing a mode of practicing this in the everyday affairs of life, as we'll see. In other words, this will be an exercise, really an instruction in going from the easy to the hard. We're going to start today. If you can habituate yourself on the easy things, then it will be easier to habituate yourself on the more difficult things. And it begins like this: V'lo yoed So furthermore, it's not only by struggling against the negative things and the sinful things and the draw to sinful things, even in the realm of things which are totally permitted to oneself, one can practice this avoida, this habit of exercising one's strength over one's desires, even in the realm of things which are permitted to a person. Like we taught him lagamri, completely permitted. To the extent that a person, in the words of the Tanya, slaughters his yetzer hara, afilu shakala, even for a moment, and intends to subjugate the sitra achra, in the left side of the heart. And he gives examples of what I've been speaking about here, in permissible arenas, permissible situations where you practice hiskafia, subjugation of the draw to something that's going to be negative, that it will have a negative result. Kigayin, for instance, a person wants to eat, right? No problem with that. You're supposed to eat and keep yourself healthy with what you eat. But you don't eat at the moment that the desire hits you, postpone it for a bit. The person postpones the eating for a bit. For an hour, he said, for after an hour, or even pachas, even less than that. And instead of eating at the moment that you have the desire, just postpone the desire. This is something permissible and healthy. Postpone it for a moment, and in that moment, do something. He says, to learn Torah in that time, or do something else that's openly a mitzvah. As is brought in the Gemara, it says about Talmidei Chachamim. The fourth hour of the day is the hour that most people eat. I mean, if you get up at 5 in the morning, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Shashishis, and the 6th hour is the Michael of Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim consciously postpone their eating for a bit. This is a push away of a permissible desire and a strengthening of the muscle of dealing with one's desires. And they would keep themselves hungry for a couple of hours, the kavanazu, having this intention, that I'm building up the muscle, so to speak, of being able to more control over the desires that I have for physical things, even though these physical things are permissible. And they would keep themselves hungry, keep themselves hungry for a couple of hours, the kavanazu, with this kavanah. Even though after the Suda, they're going to learn all day just as they would in the first place. So it's not about increasing the amount of learning. It's about developing, or I call it exercising and strengthening the muscle of dealing with one's desires. If he holds back his mouth from speaking things which his heart desires. Now, this is not Lashon Hora, because Lashon Hora is a sin. This is something I would say in the realm of something happens. Someone, your relationship, someone you're dear to, says something, and you say, better keep quiet. Better keep quiet. Because if I say something, it might just make it more explosive, right? I'm just giving that as an example. Just holding back from a desire you have to speak, even though this is not Lashon Hora for you to give a retort to somebody, but it may have an uncomfortable, non-desirable result, so you hold back. So this is holding back from things which are permissible. Having to do with anything in any context of any affair in the world. And also to hold back, try to get a hold of those ruminations that rise up in your thought. Even a little bit. If this is the exercise of the Beinoni, right? The Beinoni will have thoughts in his or her mind which rise up, but the Beinoni doesn't think as sons. I like the expression. I think I forget who said it yesterday, but the Beinoni doesn't think into his thoughts. Don't think into the thoughts. Don't grab a hold of them. So that's an exercise of something that's, that's not really difficult if you continue to practice it in the very light and more easy arenas than those other arenas. So feel even a little bit. Is in this way, one is iskafia sitra acher lasata. One is subjugating the sitra acher and pushing it down lasata below. And every time you do that, even in an arena like this, making an eating choice for something more healthy than another, making a talk choice not to speak at that moment for some reason that you think might be negative. And one can go on and on with these examples. These are also iskafia sitra acher. These are also subjugating the sitra acher and pushing it down below. And what did the Zohar tell us? Iskafia sitra acher lasata. When a person does this down here below, there goes out a huge expression, a huge effusion of godliness up above, and that's what it says. And this holiness goes up from above to below. Harba, very much. And from this sanctification, sanctification means separating yourself for even a moment from something that has any touch of negativity, even if an important point today, even if that negativity is not sinful, but just is something that may produce, an unexpected negative reaction. And those examples that I gave before, and we all can find many examples, I'm sure, and we can talk about this in a few minutes. And from this holiness, which is this istalik from above to below, that draws down the supernal holiness, the supernal rays of God's kedusha down below onto a person, the sayon, to help the person, siyur rav, with a great help, ve'otzim, and a strong help, la'abadoso yizborach, in his service of Hashem. This is what our sages said in the Gemara in Yuma. If a person will sanctify oneself down here below just a little bit, they sanctify that person very much from above. And in addition to that, when you do such a thing, when you mekadesh atzmai, you're fulfilling yourself. It's a part of the mitzvah of the Torah. The Torah says, that you should make yourself holy. It's a mitzvah, a positive mitzvah, to mekadesh yourself, and even to mekadesh yourself b'muterlo, to mekadesh yourself, make yourself at some degree of separation, even in the things that are permissible to you. That's sanctifying yourself in that which is permissible to you. Upirish, in the explanation of the hiskad shesem, to make yourself holy. Shesha'ata asmehim kadeshin, you're making yourself holy, claiming, which means to say, even though in truth, in emes sheba emes, you are not separated from the sitra acher. Witness the fact that you do have taivas, that even perhaps taivas that are in the realm of things that are prohibited, that one does have taiva. Let's take lashon hora. That's an easy one. Everyone, at least everyone I know, has obviously has some taivas there. I'm not accusing anybody. But anytime you do that, so even though you're not in truth separated from the sitra acher yet, you're not yet a beinoni, because the sitra acher is in her complete strength, in her power, and as when it was born. And it says in other places in Tanya that in fact the sitra acher is bigger because it was there, is implanted in us with our animal soul when we were born, but now we're adults and we have adult taivas and we have adult, drawings to things which are unpermissible. So it's even grown a bit. in the hollow hasmali in the left side of your heart. Raksha Kevish Yitzre, but you're doing the work of a Rasha B'Toivlan. You're doing the work of transforming, subjugating that impulse and pushing it aside. And when you do that, there's a glory of effervescence of God which falls down here below. And that's called Umakadishatz, sanctifying yourself. The Yisim Kadeshim. And when you sanctify yourself, but bring to mind the fact that our sages have said, and it's said outside of the Torah context also, that habit creates second nature. So if you get in the habit of this, in the arenas which are easy to deal with, that quote strengthens, I call it strengthening the muscle, builds the muscle, the Hayisim Kadeshim, and you will become Kadeshim. Klema is to say, in the end, you will become holy and separated in truth from the Sitra Achra. Because you're going to get strength from Hashem in this. Every moment that you do what we're speaking about here today, you get help from above. And we get help, assistance from above, to push away that Sitra Achra from one's heart, little by little. That's today's Tanya. I think it's a great, for me, a great, yet as we were going yesterday, we even discussed how difficult the things are that we were talking about, and particularly to get to that point where Zodoinus Nasis, where Avoinus Nasis Zodoinus, that we can transform the negative, meaning the sinful things, into merits, which is really the hallmark of the Baal Shuva, who has unwittingly had been immersed in things which were prohibited, and gets disgusted with him or herself and and that becomes therefore a propellant for tshuva. But that's a great tshuva. Here we're speaking about taking our ordinary little affairs of daily life and using them as opportunities for slowly and gradually, but distinctly strengthening the muscle and getting in the habit and creating a habit of turning away from the things which are instinctively or just present themselves, and taking a little bit of distance and thought to turn that into a more positive experience. And that becomes an exercise. We have plenty of opportunities to do, I'm sure, every day. And we do it now in the context of this chapter, with the knowledge that that's part of the process of strengthening the muscle to, as he just said, that you get a lot of help from above, and through that process, you can become a real muscle person. And the Yetzer Hara you can get to a point where you'll be Kabenini or Benini. Comment? Question?
I feel that works, doing small things. Even with my own experience starting to do chitas, I told myself just one pasuk, one parak of Tehillim, and one line of Tanya, and eventually I did the whole thing plus more things. But yeah, the experience.
Speaking of just doing one thing, a little bit aside from this context, but davening. Davening is a thing that I know a lot of other folks have problem with, just staying with it or utilizing davening for what it's supposed to be, which is avodah shebalev, the avodah of the heart. Just one thing. What I mean by that is, and this is advice that's given in Chassidus also, just take one line in the davening. And in fact, in Kuntras Hatfila, the Rabbi Rashab advises this. Take one line of davening and just think into that one that resonates with you. How the heavens sing the praises of Hashem. Whatever it is. It's like, and all through davening, in Pesukei de Zimra, you have these. Pick one and let that be the balloon on which the helium balloon on which you rise during the davening, so to speak. Just one thing, and then maybe two things. And that's it, little by little.
I love the fact that we do a small effort, it says we do a small effort and Hashem helps us from above. So we always have to remember to ask Hashem for his help because he's got a lot to give. And he
has a lot.
Make our effort. Yeah, right. There's no limits. And
asking is one thing, but here you don't even need to ask. When he sees, that's the expression, right? When you raise up yourself like an eagle from below, it has an automatic trigger response from above. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Rivka.
It's Yuris Chana. I just want to say,
it's Yuris Chana.
What's exciting about it is that when you get in the habit of doing that, you actually can, transform yourself, your body, or your animal soul to learn to actually desire to do the right thing. That eventually you don't have to fight back those desires, but I know the Beinoni doesn't convert, but it says here that through you being aided from above, that you can actually expel the Sitra Achra from your heart little by little.
Right.
So that's real motivation that eventually you won't even desire to engage in or indulge in those things.
And I would guess that a lot of us on this call have been engaged in some kind of practice, whether it's mental practice or eating practice or exercise practice, where what you said has become true, where we've seen that through the initially difficult, I've got to do it, you may even come to, I really want to do it, right? And even enjoying doing it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to think of these things that are not in the spiritual realm, the areas that we work on with for self-control, that we so quickly get you used a beautiful phrase, the effervescence of God's help.
Right.
That was gorgeous. Because you don't usually, like, let's say you have to eschew sugar, absolutely. So everybody's had the experience that when you do that, or you within a day or two, all of a sudden things that have any sugar in it taste too sweet. You do, it's pretty quick. As soon as you exercise control, it happens. And you don't necessarily think of it as God helps those who help themselves. You think of it as a control exercise, and it's working. But it's great to think of the spiritual aspect even in the physical realm.
I remember the day when I actually started to enjoy broccoli. It was one day. I should eat it, and then I finally actually developed a taste for it.
That's never happened for me with Brussels sprouts, but maybe I should try again.
But something else, whatever it is. Yeah. All right. I think this was pretty straightforward. I'm not seeing a slew of people jumping up and saying, I don't know. This is pretty straightforward. Huh?
Relates to what we were talking about yesterday as well.
Meaning?
You said to anticipate and to approach something in a conscious manner.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anticipate. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Someone picked I guess not everybody was here. It was just the idea that I think I use the example at work, but your kid is coming home from school, and maybe the kid had done something. Maybe we'll have to up this because we don't have many people with young kids. But somebody's approaching the door, and you know who it is, and you have an instinct of feeling in a certain way negative, and you just restrain that and just make a decision that you're going to turn this into a positive experience before the person opens the door. Okay, but that may be difficult because you may have pent-up feelings. Here we're talking about going from the light to the heavy. And today we've spoken really about picking an arena, an area where you can do this, where you can postpone something, or you can make an eating choice different, or you can push that little extra mile in your physical exercise, or practice your mental calisthenics in a little bit stronger, more effective way, and gradually build and build and build. And I think those are all the bechains, I think, of today. Look for an opportunity for it.
One thing to add, because he said something that said in the text that you're restraining yourself from something permissible in order to learn Torah longer.
Right,
I think
that's what it says. That's what it says in the text, right?
Yes, it's also in the sense of doing a mitzvah. I think
Sure.
anything in Kedusha. I don't think it should be, I don't think it's intended to be limited to learning Torah. I mean,
no, the context is someone, a Talmud Chacham who does that, or, it's in the Mishnayos that a Talmud Chacham, the time of eating is later than an average person. And that's the reason.
Okay, but it applies to preparing for Shabbos.
Absolutely.
Getting somebody else ready for school, doing other things that for helping other people.
Excellent, sure.
And
you're saying, Rivka, that it's not like lishma, just to not do it just to refrain from the permissible, but only when it's applied. Is that what you're putting across?
No, it's just the distinction between it. You're engaged. Be engaged in Kedusha doesn't mean just learning Torah.
Yeah, the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe on the page used the example of postponing eating in order to be oisik b'Torah ba'oisik shah, in order to be learning Torah. But Rivka is saying it's good. It can apply to many other things as well. Other mitzvahs. I see. Yeah, that's all.
Because I had been thinking that refraining from the permissible sounded to those who, I don't know who they may be, but to those who generalize Misnagdim versus Hasidim, would be surprised to read in the Tanya about refraining from the permissible, because you usually think of that as a more Musardika kind of approach. And that's why I was wondering if it was for its own sake, as an exercise, or, in order to learn, as you tell me it says.
Yeah. Kadesh atzmecha b'mutalach is a saying from the Gemara, and it's for everybody. So let's look for opportunities today to do it. I mean, I'll try, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.